Hi, it's Vanessa Love. All right, so last night I had a dream about high school, and it was mostly just me saying, "Oh, so and so, are you still mad at Mark?" And that person said, "No, I'm not mad at Mark. Look, we've been hanging out together." And I thought that was really cool. But then it got me thinking about what it was like in high school, and especially so on my profile on Facebook, I say I grew up in Berkeley. I grew up near Berkeley, and when you live around that many thousands of people, like hundreds of thousands of people, what happens, or what I experienced in high school anyway, was that people don't really keep in contact with each other. They don't care. They don't really have a sense of like loyalty, faith, or friendship. It's just kind of once you're out of the clique, you're out of the clique. That's it. You don't really run into each other actually all that often. Um, Except for sometimes, and you don't say hi because, like, you don't have to be nice. But most people go to California and they're like, oh my gosh, everyone was like really nice. I'm like, yeah, superficially. That's all that they really want. Like, they don't like, they don't care. I mean, maybe it's different in small towns, but like, when you go to the big cities, which are along the coast, of course everyone says hi. They don't really say how are you because they don't want to, they don't care. That's a little bit too much information for them. And even if they do, they want you to say good. They don't want you to say anything else really. So, like, there's been a couple of people who I went to high school with. No one has talked to you since high school. Like, no one. I can think of Caleb, one of my friends from high school. I saw him when I was 19. He's talked to no one. Like, no one. Like, I know that he was interested in becoming a filmmaker, and I looked up his name, and it said that he had a business in my hometown, and no one's talked to him. It's so weird. But out here, you run into everyone all the time. So, it's not, and the state is so small that, like, I have an ex who's in a band in New Haven. He comes out this way and plays, and there's always that possibility of running into him, which is really weird for me because I'm just like, I shouldn't be able to run into you. Like, there should not be a time, like, I came from a big city. I don't think that I should run into someone like that. Like, oh no, once I'm done with you, you should be done. Nope, that's not how it works out here. I had to learn that over the past almost 10 years. August will be 10 years. And, I have to, like, I've had to learn, like, no, you can't just, like, cut everyone off. But that wasn't who I was anyway. I really like taking time to myself, kind of figuring things out. If I'm going through something, I kind of like have my close friends, and that's it. And then when I'm around, then I don't know, that kind of like works, that helps me to work through things. And then once, like, it could be a month, it could be 6 months, but once like a certain time period or a certain, like, just things kind of fall into place or something, I feel fine to talk to people. And that's kind of how I've always been, as I said. So, and that's just like personal thing, like business stuff is very, very different. And so, I've had to like revisit people who I've not particularly liked just so that I could network and get people, like, um, it's interesting because people are on my side, but like get referrals to my business because, if you're nice to these pillars of the community, then those people will continue to go, oh, I know a therapist, she's really awesome. If you just call Vanessa, she'll hook you up or whatever. So, you kind of need that, but some of those people are assholes. So you have to be able to, really be able to make amends with them, or at least, have some sort of like, hey, how are you? Type of mentality. And it is tough. There was an ex from about, I want to say maybe 8 or 9 years ago. And so this is an interesting story. He didn't treat me very well. And so, just like left it, done with him, right? So a couple years later, I'm talking to an artist. Oh, Dan just had his artwork up. Can you believe that Dan is doing so well? Oh my gosh, Dan. And I was like sitting there like, I'm pissed off. Stop talking about Dan. I don't want to talk about Dan, but it's just like, okay, so Dan's doing well. Cool. Um, and it's just like after a while, I just couldn't get away from him. And then, so this is a funny part, when I started dating someone who lived in New Haven, about an hour away. So I kind of went over the list, like, okay, so I don't know if you know these people, but I've dated these 5 people, and you should probably like just be aware that those people are still within your group of friends, and so I know that those names might come up. So I guess my ex's friend didn't realize that I would have told him that I had dated these other people. So my ex walks into his friend's house, and the friend goes, "Oh, I know something that you don't know. Vanessa dated Dan." And he was like, "Oh no, I knew that." He's like, "How did you know that?" "Well, Vanessa told me when we first started dating, like that she dated these people." And so I was like, yeah, see, when you're in a small town, you have to cover your bases like that. Like, hey, this might come up. Just, by the way, I did date while I was in college, so here are the people, and they still live in town and everything, so, yeah, that's always interesting. And then, like, sometimes I'll run into an ex, while I'm out, and I'll be like, "You live in, like, California now, like, what are you doing out here?" "Oh, holidays, my parents, blah, blah, blah." It's like, oh, and that's just when you think like, oh, I'm over them, like I'll never see them again, never have to have a conversation with them, we had nothing in common anyway, we're done. And you run into them, and it's you do have to be nice, but it is what it is. What I love about the people out here is that people are so willing to bury hatchets, and because you have to. If you hated, and I'm gonna make up a name, like Sue, if you hated Sue, you'd hear about her all the time, and you'd run into her, and you'd run into her like probably 4 or 5 times a month. And like, all right, after a while you kind of have to be friends with Sue, even if you don't want to, because you're gonna have to, like, because you're gonna run into her anyway. And this is how I guess some of those like interesting dynamics of small towns happen, where it's like, oh, so and so doesn't like being in the same room with her, but like, oh, look how they're acting toward each other. And I guess that's kind of the fun of part of the dynamics of a small town, which is, I don't know, it's for me it's still interesting, because I'm like, I don't know, like, just don't go to those places. Well, as I said in my last video, when you only have like 2 or 3 things going on during the week, and everyone goes to those same things, and it's the same group of people going to those same things, you run into everyone. Luckily now there's 3 open mics during the week, and just the still continued, actually there's 2 open mics now for poetry, so music open mics and the poetry open mics, which is an interesting dynamic, because one of those things where I'm like, what happened? I asked to be as a poet in the music open mics, and some of the music open mics allow that, and some of the music open mics do not allow that. And it is very interesting. It's like there's only like 4 or 5 poets really in the community. Like, let us get up and have a voice. But small town politics, somehow we have to have separate, because we don't do the same thing, but we do the same thing. Like, I don't. The joke that I made was, I don't know the difference between writing poetry and writing your own song. We're both writing something in lyric form. You just have music to it. But, small town antics, whatever it was, that wasn't going to work out for the people who were doing the open mics. The music open mics, not the poetry open mics. Separate but equal, I'm sure. Yeah, so that's, it's as I said, like the loyalty is always something that like I appreciate because I just didn't have that experience when I was younger, and I can definitely just appreciate that you know you don't have people who like are off the face of the earth unless they move away. It's like, no, if they're still in this small town, you're gonna run into them a lot, like a lot. Yeah, and always fun, interesting. Anyway, so I hope you enjoyed this. I know that I've been kind of on this like small town rant type of thing. I'm hoping that my brain will click into other topics that might be interesting, and that you'll continue watching. All right, thanks so much and have a good one. Bye.